Okay. All right. So welcome to our Special Education Technology Center webinar series. And today's webinar is called PODD, Fun and Practical Implementation Ideas for Your Whole Team. So April, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first.
Hi, my name's April Weitkamp. I'm a life skills teacher in Everett. I have been doing some variation of PODD in my classroom for, I don't know, 8 years or so. And we'll go over my students and stuff later, but that's, I think, about the time frame, right, Sari?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Life skills level students.
Thanks. And I'm Sarah Kinsella, and I'm a speech and language pathologist working with the Special Education Technology Center, but I did work in April's school district before, and I got to observe April a lot and partner with her sometimes, and as the AT team member there. And so had a good partnership with April. And so we're excited to bring you this information about PODD. We April did do a webinar a few months ago. And April, if you want to put that in the chat, would be great. Also on PODD, so if you, after you see this, you want more information or different information, you can check out the recording from that webinar. Because of that one, there was a lot of interest, and we thought, let's do some more about, you know, how you're really going to get this going in your classroom, and also a little bit more about the ins and outs of PODD and what does it look like. And we're going to hopefully show you a little bit, we'll model a little bit, show you what it really looks like if you haven't seen it too much, and then get some ideas going. And then if you have ideas, we'd like to hear that too. So here we go. I think. Okay, so when I say quick PODD overview here, it really is quick because if you know PODD, this is a class, there's a class you can take to become certified to have a training in PODD, and it's several days, and it's a really robust class with great information, and we recommend it. But this is just a little snapshot of what PODD is. So we'll do that. But if you have other questions and or you want to look into that class, I suggest it. PODD stands for Pragmatic Organization Dynamic Display. These are communication books, and they are robust, meaning that there's a lot of vocabulary. There are a lot of messages that your student can communicate and you can communicate as a partner. And the reason it's pragmatic is because it's all about the purpose of communication, the interaction, the use of communication, is how these books are set up. So it's a little different from other communication books that are like all category based. It's all about what I have to say. I have something to say. So you'll see April saying that a lot in her videos and in here. I think she probably says it a lot in her general life, probably going around.
I do remember the story I was telling you, Sarah, the other day.
Tell that.
So I have, my daughter is home. I teach from school some days and I teach from home some days. And I have a 3-year-old little girl, and she was in my office the other day when I was working from home, and my PODD, which is right here with me, was sitting on the floor, and she walked over to it and she pointed to the more to say, and she said, I have something to say, more to say. Because she's heard me say it so much when I've been on Zoom with my students that she's already kind of scripted part of that. And then she was pretending to read the pictures and talk just like she sees her mama do on the computer.
So cute.
Yeah.
So it's a way of life for some people, especially April.
Yeah.
So there are several different types of PODD books that you may be interested in learning more about. And again, you won't get a whole lot of information right during this webinar, but we will do a little overview. One that you're going to see a lot, because April uses it a lot for modeling, April is the teacher, is the group PODD. And I think you probably
one that I was holding up. And as you can see, when we say robust, these are the pages for the group PODD. And it's what we would call a 20 cell because it's 5 by 4. But it has a lot more vocabulary in particular areas than an individual PODD would have.
So April, will you just kind of briefly say what makes it a group PODD? What do they call it?
It's designed to be able to have a lot of group conversations, activities, and instructional components. So this is a good one for teachers, just simply in terms of how, I mean, the branching pages are pretty much the same, but when you get to a particular area, you've got a lot more, like in the opinion pages. I think it's a single page, and I've got 3 or 4 different pages that allow me to have much more of a robust conversation and share a lot more information with students. There are a lot of the action sections, there are instructional activities components, and those are also much more involved than some of the student ones. I know that our staff has found that if you can't find what you want in the student pod, we often go grab mine because it's got the most vocabulary and it's got the most language when we're modeling, and it provides more opportunities.
Thank you. April, again, to kind of put on the spot, can you model something with your group pod kind of slowly for us to see what that even looks like for those total beginners?
I have something to say. I'm going to go to more to say.
And on more to say, there's a little page number next to it.
There's a little teeny number. And for all of these pages, it's color coded and then there are little numbers. So I'm referring to those and looking. And as you get better, you know where you're going a lot more. But when you're starting out, it's okay to go slow and to look. Something's wrong. Uh-oh, what's wrong? I am feeling, oh, it's not here. I'm going to turn the page. I'm feeling a little bit worried. I always do when I do these classes. So that, and I don't think I've ever actually used worried in that context before. I flubbed along. If it wasn't going to be there, I was going to go back and talk about my opinion and see if it was there, or go to my feelings and see if it was there. So
yes,
kind of just on the spot, how do I find what I want to say?
Thank you. April, I'm also just double checking the chat.
I did that first link is in there.
Thanks, April.
Opening.
So it's also a good example that you just kind of try it. We'll get a little bit more into it, but you just try it. You might find something you might not, like you didn't know exactly where you were going to go for that word, and you've been doing this.
And actually I was looking for the word nervous, but it wasn't there, and I saw worried, so I was able to frame it in that respect rather than trying to go and find nervous. So you have to kind of just be willing to be a little more flexible in how you're going to use your vocabulary, which flexibility and trying and being okay with screwing it up is a big part of learning how to be comfortable doing PODD in the classroom. So
right. So the books that April uses in her classroom with students, almost only, right, April, are the one page?
They're the one page opening, and this is our latest variation. We've been through 4 or 5 different versions of these over the years, and this one has a spiral bound. It's got PVC pipe through it, and then we have cords, and this is all my Paris because they're amazing, and everybody gets color-coded beads. These are a great fidget. Kids could chew on them and then they don't chew on your book. The other thing is you can then know whose is whose, and it's a great shoulder strap for portability. And we've taken the original size and we condensed it down to just make it a little bit smaller. So these are factors you would have to take a look at depending upon your students, their motor needs and otherwise. But as our team determined that this was the size that we liked the best. And we start everybody with a 20 cell. And we can talk a little more later about, Sarah, about the different levels of how many pictures per page and those things. But we found that was the one that we liked the most for vocabulary availability when modeling.
20 cells. Right. So you could go as low as 9 cells. And April, you found that you didn't have enough words, right?
Yeah, I had a 9 cell. The other thing is the size of it was very big. Because you still have the number of pages and you're adding more per page. And we felt it was very limiting. I mean, yes, the child wouldn't necessarily point to all of those pictures, but if we're modeling, we want to have the vocabulary available to model as much as possible with that rich vocabulary. So we felt 9 was limiting, 16 was to an extent. And so as a team, we kind of went with, well, this is the one we really like the best, is the 20 cell. And that was a team thing. And it took a long time coming to get to that point for us also.
Right. And part of this, every student, students who need communication systems need what works for them. In April's class, she has her group pod every student also has a pod, and they also may have another device. They may have a high-tech device and that they've trialed, gone through a process to do. So when she's saying, you know, kind of what works for her team and her students, they've decided to have this kind of classroom rollout of a pod. Is that?
Yeah, we did it years ago, and then we just continue to add other things that we like. So it's an understanding that everybody in the classroom has access to a pod if they're trialing something else. The other thing is tech dies. It doesn't work. You can't run an update, battery's low, and we always have a backup system. Even if the kids haven't utilized it a whole lot, they've seen it modeled a lot, which then gives them that voice right there if they have a need for it and their personal or their higher level AAC device is not working.
Great. I'm going to breeze through a bit because I think we're going to have a lot to say, and I really want to show videos and things. So just so you know, there's also this these 2-page openings, and there's 2 pages with a side panel, which makes it a little thinner. With these 2-page, you have all your quick words. Oops, all your quick words on these 1 pages, and then it has the same thing that April was talking about, where I could share an opinion. If I go here, I have something to say. I'm telling you something. It's an opinion. And then it says go to page 2 here. It's hard to see. So then in my page 2. And this 2-page, you know, you're really looking a little bit more at combining words to make sentences. So you may be modeling a little bit more as far as syntax or the number of words that you're saying. So I may say, I think that, I might say, I think you are awesome. Where, you know, you could also just say, I think you are awesome. So you're
Vocabulary.
kind of choose, yeah, how much are you modeling?
Mm-hmm.
Again, a lot you get in the class and there's a lot more to it. But.
Yeah, there is. The one thing that I didn't talk about, and Sari's referred to quick words a couple of times now, format for pod. The very first 2 pages of every single pod are what we call quick words. If you're starting, it's a good place to start just with those 2, see what messages you can provide. So you have 2 pages of 1, and those are your quick words. They will get you, you can do a whole lot of things like, that's mine, don't touch, you know, I love you, I'm all done. They can almost be single messages. From that, there's then a branching page, and that takes you to all of the other components of the vocabulary and how the pod is organized. So one of the things that we did initially when we started all of this was we did, what can we just say with branching or with the quick words page? And that's the same for the student pod as well as the group pod.
Right.
One of my favorite stories is about one of my students learning how to tell me this right here on the 2nd page of the individual student pod. Very first thing he ever told me was on the 2nd page of that was buzz off. And so I went away for like 6 whole seconds, and I came back and I said, okay, you can tell me something else now. And we moved on, but I had to honor that he communicated that as a quick word that he had to say to me that day.
Yeah, it's all about the interaction, right? So there's no right and wrong here.
Nope.
There's 2 links I have on here, and you guys will get these slides. And April can put these in the chat as well. One is where you would purchase the pod software and Boardmaker, just in case you want that resource. When you click on that, it'll also take you to, it'll also show you some kind of related products, and it's interesting to check those out. And then a YouTube link, and I believe this one is a mom and an SLP, and they're having an informal conversation about what the pod is, and it's a nice kind of overview. It's long, but it's I thought it was really nice, and it's very unassuming and easy to follow. So it's nice to share with teams and families and for yourself.
Unfortunately, Sari, all of these are going to come through as very big, giant links, the way I'm put it together. So
okay, that's okay. We can
always send them out later too.
We can deal with that. Yeah. Okay. We're going to watch a short video, and this is April's class. And the reason I'm showing it to you now is because April using that group pod. Unfortunately, I need to pause the recording. So the video we just watched was April using the pod on her smartboard in her classroom.
Yeah, I project it with my Elmo. So I just put it under the document camera and I make sure that I have it set up in such a way, because it flips, that there's space above it that will project, and it is then projected up onto the wall so the kids can see it as I'm teaching.
Great. And are there any questions about what you saw?
So, you know, that was not rehearsed. That was just, she showed up, I had to say it. So I found the best way to say it in the time period I had.
Okay, thank you. Let's keep going. Okay, so April, who should use pod?
Everybody. That's a personal opinion. I have gone so far. I have one student who actually doesn't have one because she verbalizes well enough that she doesn't need it at this point. However, the first couple of years she was with me, she did have it, primarily for the vocabulary, so that she could look and refer to the things that she couldn't remember, or it took her a while to recall. But quite honestly, it's a partner-assisted program, so we're doing the navigation, and we find it useful for every single kiddo. They may quickly outgrow it and move on to a different system, although we always have one for them. It's like Sarah, kind of a way of life in our room. But if you don't have one when you come, you're going to learn about it, you're going to have one, and it'll either work for you or we will move you on to something else. But we want to have that system that we model regularly available to you while you're here.
So April, that reminds me that what we saw in your classroom video just then was you were modeling it. You were talking and you were pointing to the pictures and using it, which is like aided language modeling. So it's this general receptive input throughout the day. And Rich is different from like what we would call manned modeling, which is when we're expecting the student to have a response or repeat what we're saying.
Yeah.
So and that is how you implement PODD, and in the beginning especially, but
very much so. I have a few things that I do that are different than actual PODD training in terms of manding. I do have some practice that I have the kids do. The other thing that you didn't see in the video is throughout the classroom, the paraeducators were positioned with the children, and they were modeling that same navigation that I was doing on the other pods, on the student pods that were on the desks, and or they were having what we like to call contingent conversations, where there's something that they're talking about that's semi-related to what we're doing. And we like to honor that the kids want to tell us things and they want to be involved. And so if they deviate a little bit, that's cool. That's really the bonus for us. Is we'll keep it within the parameters, but it is genuine learning if they're engaging in the way that it means something to them.
I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll see a paraeducator doing that in a video coming up. So like April said, it's partner powered, it's kid powered. The students are telling you where to go with it when they're using it, but you are physically tuning the pages, at least, especially in the beginning. So really it can work for a lot of different students. So here's an example, not from April's class.
Hey, tell me your message, Cal. More to say.
Is this too small? Can you see it a bit? Okay, April also put the link to this in the chat because it is fun to have these videos to go back to her to show other people. And these are from the internet, shared freely, so I'm not pausing for that.
I want categories, activities. So you say, oops, you want people, do you? Which one do you want, activities or people? People, good boy. Family. Ben. You want Ben. What next? Do you need to go to categories? Categories, good. You want Ben to do an activity, to play, turn the page, music, a band. Who else is going to be in the band? Callaghan's going to be in the band.
All right, I'm going to pause here, but such a cutie, and he wants someone to be in that band with him. So lots of things to talk about.
I just love that he's able to tell somebody he wants to be in a band, because that's not something most people would think of as, you know,
Mm-hmm.
At
Right.
home, yes, but in school, I'll talk about band.
And that example is obviously a very young student, and older students can use this as well. Here's another, we'll just play a clip from this. This is Linda Burkhart working with a student. She is amazing, does all sorts of communication and teaching trainings, but she is who does the PODD trainings in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay, more to say. Something's wrong, think it, question? One of those?
I'm going to pause real quick because, wow, that's fast, right? They've been using this PODD together, and she, different from the boy that you just saw, where he's pointing to the picture when mom, or I'm not sure if it's mom, but is turning the pages. This student is responding with a yes/no response to say, yeah, it's one of those that I want. So when Linda's going through choices, she's saying, she's scanning for the student, and then the child is responding yes/no.
Yes, okay. Something's wrong? Yes, something's wrong. Oh no, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Tired, hurt, uncomfortable, one of those? Tired, hurt, uncomfortable? Yes? Oh my goodness. Tired? Tired? Oh, you think you're tired, huh? I'll tell you what I think. Go back.
Okay, and she's going to have something to say, because it is part of that give and take communication, right? But how important is that to be able to tell someone you're tired, hurt, or uncomfortable, right? I'm tired.
Huge deal.
Okay, any questions or comments here? We'll take a little break to open it up to you all before we move on.
So the thing with PODD is there's always more information than you're going to actually make it through. So if you think of questions, you can throw them in the chat as we're going.
Yeah, and April, I hope you don't mind, but I added a slide with our information because I know you always give it away. So
That's fine. Totally was going to say it anyway.
All right. Okay, so let's get going. Actually, I realize we do have a lot to get through. So quick notes about construction. So PODD is not just, you buy the templates, you buy the CD, and you put it together. So it is an act of a labor of love.
It's an investment in time in order to want to do it.
April, can you, so in April's school district, there is a grant that a lovely retired SLP put together for to help get funds for creating PODDs, because that can sometimes be a barrier, right? As
yes,
other AAC can be. But can you talk about how you incorporate it into TPEP and what?
Oh yeah.
That means?
So I've done a few things over the years. There was a while we just paid for it ourselves because we wanted it. There was a time we got a donated printer, and then I applied for a grant for ink to allow us to be able to print them. And then I purchased laminate for the building in order to not feel guilty about laminating all of these books for their durability factor. But in terms of things like TPEP, when you guys are looking at taking on a project like PODD, it becomes very overwhelming when you're looking at everything else that you're doing. So one of the recommendations that I have for most of the different classes I do for SETC is you can make it your TPEP goal, especially if you're doing comprehensive, and look at all the different ways that you can utilize this one thing that you're going to focus on for the year. You can focus on it with a small group. You could focus on how you're going to do it within your classroom. You can focus on how you're going to collaborate with your team members and make it something that everybody is involved in. When we started PODD, it was not just the classroom. Our speech therapist, the one we've been talking about who did it, she signed up and got us clock hours, and we used our learning improvement, our early release days, as a team to collaborate. So it was paraeducators, the speech therapist, the physical therapist, and myself spending time building these books, practicing with these books. And we were able to write goals for TPEP that allowed us all to do this as a way to enhance what it is we're doing in the classroom. My thing is, if I'm going to take something like this on, I want it to be important, and I want to pick something that's not working in my room and make it better. So looking at it in that respect gives you permission to focus on that for a while, and then, you know, add other things later on as you become more comfortable with how it's going.
And then your building administration sees what you're doing, they know what you're doing, and when you have more requests for funding or other things, more color printer, they're on board. They know what you're up to.
They do.
This picture was shared by Michelle, who's joining us today. She's also in same district with April. She's an SLPA. Michelle, do you have anything you want to add about making pods and what that's like? I know you're doing it right now.
Sure. Okay, so generally you would be, after you get the pods printed, you would laminate them at school maybe, but right now I'm not really at any particular school, and this laminator is a mobile one that someone donated. Actually, somebody donated it a few years ago, and so I brought this home and I was working on that, and what I learned was that it takes an awful long time to cut them out, because first you have to cut everything out, and the little tabs down there, and then after that's done, then you have to laminate all of it, then you have to recut. So there's a lot of, I mean, you think, oh, make a pod, no problem. No, it's very time consuming. So it'd be awesome if you could have a group of your team to get together like April did to help construct pods, because I'm just kind of doing it for our school's AT lab right now, and I'm only doing it when I have time, when I'm not doing other duties on my 2 days of AT lab.
Yeah, and I can share a little bit about that too. Okay. For our classroom, we've had a couple different things over the years. It got to the point where everybody was printing in their spare time, but everybody cuts and aligns a little bit differently. So everybody had their own dedicated book, and they kept it that way because we found for binding, if there was even just a little bit of variation in how they were put together, especially if you do the comb bindings, like the student one that I showed you, you got to align it. I mean, durability is a factor, and you want to make sure that you're doing it. So each person had their own, and whenever you had spare time before or after school, you could print and take it home and cut at night. It's just something that whenever somebody had time, we were doing. And for a couple of years, there was just stacks of unfinished pods in the corner while we were finished, next level.
Right. And I bet, Michelle, you agree that when you do spend all this time with the pod book, you do learn it, right? You're like, oh, that's where I can find that word, and that's what those paths look like. So there's a little hidden bonus that I guess.
And I did mine. I put it together myself. I had printed it and I took it home and had to figure out how to put it together. And if you're doing a group pod, it is a little complicated. So if you can find somebody who's put one together, reach out and ask them. There are a few little things about it that the instructions don't make sense.
Great.
It's very different from the regular 20 cell pods or something.
Yeah. Making the group. Yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to really skip through this part quickly, but there's a lot to think about when you're making your own pod books. You can see there's lots of different things you're going to want to think about for customizing. April, can you just share about, you were sharing about the teacher who customized for the skin color.
Oh yeah, we had a team up at another school here in Everett who really got into having pods. And I remember talking to one of the paras, and she said that she had gone through every single cell on every single, which is a lot if you're looking at like a 20 cell, and changed the skin color of the people, of all of the images to match what that student needed to have. There are some things around diversity and things within the pod that, unless you're really deliberate, don't necessarily happen. But it was very important to them that they had it as such, and so they saved it once they'd done all that, so that they didn't have to do it each time. But there's a lot to it.
That's great.
It's important.
Yeah, so it's important to think about that. Think about skin color. Think about what are important holidays or cultural events for students. Are there certain words that are important or have different meaning for students or families?
We've even worked with families because there is a religion portion in the pods as well. So you have to talk to the families and get to know them and know what's important. You know, if their family goes to church, if they don't want that included, being aware of your families, addressing their unique things is very important.
And these are board maker picture communication symbols that are in the pod. And oh my goodness, there are so many new board maker symbols. Like this one is Youthquake. So it's something cultural change brought on by youth. So there's also, like April said with Buzz Off, you want to make it interesting too. So there may be some places where you want to add some social words. April talked a little bit about the binding beads, thinking about durability and portability. If you want more information about making it, constructing it, on the previous slide, there's a link I just added, April, so you don't have it, but it's somebody who is actually going through and making the pod and took a video, which is really neat. So we'll make sure you have access to that. But also, I know April is open to sharing information.
Yeah, I can. Anybody has any questions or need for recommendations, thoughts, just let me know. I can tell you that Gail and Linda would say that if it's not spiral bound, it's not really a pod. And so mine is in violation. My aim is to remake it eventually, but that in and of itself right now is not what I want to do. So I use my pod ask pod, but there are some things about how you build it that are important.
Right.
People who designed it.
Okay, so let's get into some activities. So that's what we came to talk about, right?
That's the part.
We want to make sure that whenever we talk about April's class, we like to kind of tell you what it looks like now. So April, just can you give us a quick, what is your class? I'll share this, but what is your class like before, now, and future?
Yeah, so my class when we were in person is a 1st through 5th. Students with moderate to severe disabilities. Our capacity is technically 10. So if I have more than that, I'll have some additional staff. I have 2 classroom paraeducators and then as many as 2 to 3 one-on-ones. My base of the classroom paras has been the same for the last 8 years that I've been in this building. And that's the time that we've been doing pod the most. But then anybody else that's come on board has also learned it over time. I even have subs that have been here long enough that they've done enough pod that when they come back, they hop right back into it when they're with us. And like Sari said, everybody has a pod. I have one child who doesn't need it anymore. And then on top of that, they have something else if they've qualified or if we're trialing it to determine if that's something else that they need for their communication.
So, and you've been doing virtual therapy teaching.
I've been doing virtual, and the message you're going to see is actually from last spring. I'm going to continue to be a virtual teacher, and I'm actually going to be taking on students from other schools who have, whose parents have chosen virtual. So I'm going to be starting to do some pod and some different kinds of things that some of these students and their families have not seen. So I'm excited to do that. I've got to figure out if I'm going to get them to them or if I'm just going to be doing modeling on the computer at this point. But yeah, it's definitely, and it works even in virtual. Like I said, if my daughter's learned it and I'm doing it when I'm talking to the kids, you know, they know when they hear that, they look at me and they tune in because they know I'm going to be talking with the pictures, and it makes all the difference in processing what it is I'm saying.
Right. So some of the videos you'll see are April in her class, like you saw before, and some are virtually with her class. I just thought this was such a cute message that you shared.
Hi, boys and girls. I want to see you, but I can't. I love you. Do really good work for your moms and dads, more when they ask you to, and I will see you soon. Bye. Hi, boys and girls.
It's running again.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So cute.
All of the different videos.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we have something in the chat. Okay, you've already.
I took care of it. Yeah. Somebody got waterproof paper for their pods and I thought, super, we
Yeah.
looked into that, but it was so cost prohibitive for us for all of the ones we were trying to do that we even in bulk, we couldn't purchase it that way. But that's a
Yeah.
benefit.
Terrace
because of the
slate, I
waterproof
think.
paper.
There's another question. For emergent communicators with significant visual needs, DVI does not have a yes, no. Should we work toward the yes, no while modeling the pod? High contrast using partner scanning, assisted scanning. Also, is the high contrast part of the pod folders? Is it separate? Okay, so this is something I think a lot of people are waiting for. Linda Burkhardt on her website still says it's in production to have a high contrast version of the pod, meaning something kind of like this. This is an example of a alternate presentation pod. So each one of these is one of those quick words from before. And you would say quick word, turn the page, and you're waiting for the response. So some sort of affirmation, confirmation from the student. Something's wrong. And you're waiting. So Bernadette, what you're asking, I think it's good to work on modeling that while you introduce the pod because you want to get the language available as soon as possible. It's not part of the disc, unfortunately. At the Special Ed Tech Center, we do have some pods that you can borrow, people can borrow from us. And I believe this sample of the high contrast with is available, although you could also do high contrast with the kind that April has or any other. If you, Bernadette, we can connect since we're in touch. If anyone else out there, if you want to talk more about pod or you're not sure about how to use it with your students, especially if it's something like Bernadette's saying where there's it may be more of a partner-assisted scanning situation. I would fill out our consultation form. In April, if you can put that in there, that'd be great. And we offer consultation and we can talk about what could this look like for your student and hop on Zoom and talk about it together. Good question.
For those of you that aren't familiar, the other reason that Bernadette is asking about the yes/no response is one of the big things with PODD is the fact that the kids have to have an accurate yes/no response. It was initially designed for children with CP. We model it in the classroom whether the kids have a yes/no or not. Simply because I think that the modeling of the communication, they haven't had it modeled enough, especially from a really young age, that I feel like it's better to model and work on the yes/no in other ways or provide them a yes/no that they can point to, even outside of the pod. But that's a personal thing that I choose to do as the teacher in this classroom.
Yeah, yep. Okay, great. So pod is the tool, right? You're using it to communicate about whatever else you're doing. It's not the work itself. And you can use it while you're reading. You can use it with all different types of books. I have to remember where I just heard about these polka dot books. I don't know if you guys use them, but it was somebody in one of our webinars, I think, where you're actually poking on these dots as you go through. Those are neat. You can use it with, I have Epic Books here. You can use it virtually while you're modeling. You can use it with chapter books.
Tar Heel
Reader, yeah. So it's something that you do to communicate about what you're reading. So here's an example from a family, and on YouTube it's called We Speak Pod. You may be familiar with this family, you may not, but I believe all of her kids at some point, or at least still use pods, maybe in addition to other things as well. But they're sitting down and reading a book, and she's just going to focus on the quick words. It's a bit long, so I'll just play part of it.
I'm raising my hand. I have something to say, more to say. I want to read a book. I want to read a book. I want to read a book. because I like this. But today we are going to try to just stay on the first 2 pages of our pod, our quick chat words. So we have.
So by staying on those quick chat words, they're not going to be going into describing all the things, all the animals in the book, or talking about the colors of, or what's happening with the verbs, but they're going to have conversation, pragmatic, about, oh no, and things like that. And you'll see that in a minute. I'll skip through. What Mom does here is she's reviewing, what are these quick words? She's going through all of them. And her daughter is very focused, following along on all of these. So I'm going to skip through that part and just show you a couple more seconds.
I am going to start reading the book. It's called Don't Push the Buttons. It's my turn to turn the page.
So again, just right off the bat, 2 easy things to model. And Mom's going to read the book and make it fun, and make the reading fun, and then do some modeling.
Well, and in listening to her, she can say, my turn, your turn. There's a lot within that she can just start commenting with those quick words pages once you're familiar with them.
Right. Thank you.
Ms. Larry, welcome to my book. There is only one rule. Don't push the button. Your turn, Harper, to turn the page. Your turn. Good girl.
So cute. And so Harper has her own book. Mom has a book, so she's modeling on both of those. And I just check out their YouTube page. There's so much there. April, anything you wanted to share about how you're using it during reading right now or in the past?
During reading right now, it depends upon the child, because I'm doing all my things individually unless it's a group one. And then the manipulation of it is difficult for group pod. However, in person, it works really well. I have each group, when we did small group reading, either we were using interactive books. We had books with RAP boards, which is read, ask, answer, and prompt generic boards. And then I'd have kids bring their iPads, their pods, whatever they had. And we would sit and say, one I love to talk about is Goodnight Gorilla, because I had a few kids who really liked that one. So I could focus on the animal page. I could have one of the kids' iPads in the animal sounds page. And I could have somebody else looking at emotions and feelings to talk about silly and other things of that nature. And I know that sounds overwhelming because I would do a lot of toggling back and forth, but it took me a long time to get there. Initially, I'd pick 1 lesson a day, and that was the 1 lesson a day in which I would do pod. And at first it looked like things exploded. There are a lot of funny stories over the years of me trying to manage and bring in these different activities over time. But just pick one thing, pick one book, pick one topic area that you're familiar with in the pod and read the book for that. And then go on to something else. Little baby steps still get you more modeling and communication than you would have otherwise. And it lends itself so well because the vocabulary, once you figure it out, is right there at your fingertips all the time.
Mm-hmm. Good point. It's fun to watch you do that reading group. I got to see you do that, and wow, there's a lot going on, but they're right with you. And then I think April, in our last class, your last class, you talked about that when you did start pod on your group pod. I'm thinking you're explaining a small group here. When you did on your group pod, everybody kind of keyed in, right? Wasn't there this focus change?
The difference in the kids looking at what I'm teaching was tremendous, because they're not just processing verbal language at that point. The verbal language is paired with the pictures, and we all know that our kids do better when they have those visual images. So the more I instructed using that, the more engaged my students were in whole group and in small group with what it was that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And then if the staff is there to be able to do those contingent comments and help the kids, the genuine ability for the kids to comment, because then the staff could say, hey, so-and-so's talking about this, and we could have a whole 5-minute deviation, and I could ask questions and make it more fun, because the kids who don't usually have the chance to say their piece, we're having ways to speak about what they want to talk about and how it was engaging for them.
Right. And that is so engaging. And everybody wants to talk about what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a chance. So looking into writing, there's a lot here. And April, I know you do a lot with a lot of different type of writing in your class, and writing is always kind of available as something you're doing. So it's not like this is our writing time only, but it's built into a lot of things, as is communication. Do you want to just?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Our district uses the Building Foundations That Last, which is based in some of the work of Dave Madison. The district adopted it years ago. What you see here is what we call the yellow card. If you look at my yellow card, and I'm going to try and reach over here and get it, we have additional components added to it because I also use a couple of other visual things in my classroom in terms of communication. But I utilize the images wherever possible. The yellow card is one of the things that all of my students have. They also have, there's an alphabet board there, and that is the what we call our virtual pencil for kids who don't do personal writing. They might have somebody else that they need to do the writing for them. It's kind of the idea that I'm their hands. On my yellow cards, I have the who, what, and where used using the board maker images, or they're on this one also. But I have the same ones that are on my core. So I've got all of these same images right on the yellow card. And we have a lot of different things that we've done. We do both personal narrative writing and opinion writing in the classroom. So there's a lot of video out there. See, here's my yellow card with all of the different pictures. And the kids have this at home. When we were doing in-person writing, I would do it live and tell my narrative story, and then we provide the kids with pictures and they could tell their own. And this is where it's really important to have your whole staff knowing how to do PODD, because they're all going to need to be able to navigate.
Mm-hmm. And then if you, sorry, April. April did a webinar on the personal narrative writing. You'll see a lot about with using the PODD. So I would highly recommend checking that out. Oops. But I want to show the opinion video before. We're just getting so close to the time. So I want to show you kind of what it looks like in virtual learning for April's right now.
And I can say that when I do student one-on-ones, if the parents request, I will do these live one-on-one for the family. So I will walk them through the writing process. And there's one family in particular who've done it pretty regularly because writing was a really hard thing for that child. And we've been successful on multiple weeks doing one-on-one writing during our Zooms.
Great. Yeah, so this is an example of a pre-recorded lesson.
Hey, everybody. Okay, so for this lesson, we're doing writing, but we're doing opinion writing. So you're going to need this page.
Sarah, if you want to pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of my videos that I record and post has a brief moment at the beginning when I'm telling parents what they need for the lesson. So it allows them to go gather their materials and pause it if necessary. So that was not intended for the kids. That's intended for the adults to know what materials they need before they go any further with the lesson, so that they don't start it and then have to scramble. That was a request from my family.
I love that. And here you've got your PODD.
Boys and girls, I have something to say. I'm going to go to more to say. I want to talk about what I think. Remember, this is what we think in our head. You can't see them, but this thought bubble right here is full of opinion words that we have talked about. Now, opinion, remember, is what we think in our own head. It's not what somebody else thinks. It's about us. So what you think. And these are different words about our opinion. Today, I want to know what you think about this right here.
Okay, so I just like this because it's showing how you're incorporating it into your activity. It's not like your activity is PODD. You had this opinion writing, and then you're going to go through, you're going to talk about it. She's talking about it as she's coming up with her words and her opinions and what do you like, and you're talking about that page. So it's just built into your whole.
It becomes how I have a conversation with my kids, whether they're present or not, is I have to use this component in order to talk about what I'm doing. And so I just kind of naturally over time figured out how to toggle back and forth the way that was most comfortable for me.
Right. I'm going to really quick do just part of this writing video, which I think is not opinion. And And one thing I love about this is it's showing April, who is a master pod user. She's looking for words. And so April, when you can't find a word that you want, what have you done in the past? Can you show us?
I look for it. I flub through it. I'm
What's your
sorry, the
page
lights
going?
turn off if I sit. So within the classroom, you might have somebody yell, I can't find it. Where is it? And someone else might be answering the question about how to find it. But I think for this particular video, I couldn't find the word flavors, if this is the opinion one. So I had to make up a different word for it. The other thing that you can do, and that I've done over time, is I had a year where I was really focused on the kids learning verbs. So if you go to my action section in my pod, it's really interesting. I was showing Sari this the other day. If I couldn't find it, I drew it myself. And I am by no means an artist, people, but you know, words might be in one particular section, but if I can't find it where I want it, I will add it. You flip over and you draw on the back of the piece of paper, and then it's there forever, and you can find it somewhere else at another time. The other thing I do now is I navigate. I have patterns in how I navigate. So sometimes I stop and do it differently on purpose to see if I can find words in another format, because everybody is a different kind of thinker in terms of, do they look for the pathway? How do they organize their thoughts? So I like to model it in different ways when possible. This is just my parents have your materials.
So you can see, which is nice, all the different materials that you're incorporating.
And I can say that all the kids have all of that at home.
Right.
Oh.
So let's just watch.
It helps the kids with recall. It helps them get all those language for the things that are there. Here's my picture. Can you guys see that? That right there is Miss April. I'm all covered up. And there's Miss Olivia. There's Mr. Lucas. He's so silly, his tongue is hanging out and you can't really see him. But that's Mr. John. I tell you guys stories about him too. Let's see if I can write you a story about that picture. Are you guys ready? Okay, here we go.
So this is how we do it. We use photographs of the kids in school.
I'm going to start.
Go ahead, April.
We use photographs of the kids for their writing. And so when I'm telling stories, I use photographs of my own children. And the kids have known my kids. My son and my daughter have both been into school. So they're familiar with them, and they're a big part of the stories that they hear and they see them. So it works very well naturally.
My God, because I have something to say. I'm going to go to more to say. And I want to tell you something. It already happened because you saw the picture of it. But it's also about right now because I'm talking about it now. And I'm going to go to describing words. Okay. So for these describing words, and this story, it's going to be a little bit different. Because everything's different right now, boys and girls, and that's okay. I'm going to see if I can turn the page and find what I'm looking for. I'm not even sure it's going to be on this one. We'll have to look at all the different describing words and see if I can find it. I'm looking at all of my describing words. You know what, boys and girls, it's not there. We're going to have to go back to page 1.
I'm going to pause it here because we're running close on time, but just to show you that it's okay to look for it, it's okay to go back. She's talking about it the whole time, and that is going to keep kids with you.
And even scanning to find and talking about some of the vocabulary along the way is important.
Right.
So,
I'm just
the other thing is I'm also using context boards on top of it. Oh, see, I'm going to draw on the book because it's not there.
Right. So I'm just going to show you, this is kind of what it's going to look like. Definitely check out that last webinar to get more on that, because there's a lot of information.
I have the link to that one anywhere, Sari.
I think so. And if
It.
not, I can send it in a follow-up.
Yeah.
So we are getting really close. I want to make sure you can see one video where you can see April's paraeducators supporting, but let's just briefly talk about this, April. We've got just a few minutes. But
You're gonna have to pause your recording on this one, Sari.
Yes.
The thing I can tell you is I'm actually using a student pod. I didn't have mine, or mine was being used by somebody else. So I asked the young lady here in the pink with the pink iPad, she came with both of hers, and I asked her if I could use hers because I didn't have mine, and she had her device there. So if I was going to borrow it, I said, can I use it for a minute? And I borrow the kids' iPods if I don't have mine around to say what I need to say. And you'll find over time when you look at them, there are some structural similarities to all the different levels of PODD where you can find things within it. And there's a lot of information when you start down the training road on that.
So April uses it during calendar. She incorporates it all into everything, as you can see on the right, and all these ideas. I will stop the recording really quick because it's a video of her students. Okay, so that was a video of April using her PODD during calendar. So the last few things are just, develop your PODD. Who's going to be with you on this? April talked a little bit about incorporating this. She's her paraeducators are fantastic and willing to try it out. We have video of them and lots of examples of them working side by side with the kids as April's doing a lesson. Her occupational therapist does it with her. Everybody comes in, and this is a whole group thing.
They all found that it was meaningful enough that they wanted to put in the time too.
There you go. And they made time.
Yeah. But I had to be the first one to bite the bullet and be willing to put myself out there to try it. And that's something that I would recommend to each and every teacher. Get your speech therapist on board and then just dive in. There's no other way to do it. And as the teacher in the room, that's the example you're going to set, is that it's important for your team.
Thanks, April.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it on that note and just have these up, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are with us here, we'll send the slides to you. And thanks so much.
Thank you.